Hello there, it's Val and Frank and Paddington here, and we're going to continue our chapter today. It was all about Paddington at the theatre. Hope you're all okay. I'm going to sit Frank here. I'm going to sit Paddington here. Oh, I've forgotten something. I haven't got my Paddington ears on. Wait a minute. Oh, I need my Paddington ears. Oh, here they are. Phew, I thought I'd lost them. Right. There we are. Now, oh, what else do I need on? Oh, my glasses. Can't read Paddington without my glasses, can I? Here we go. Now, do you remember? Paddington had gone to the theatre and he wasn't very happy with Cecily Bloom, was he? And he'd gone to investigate. I hope that our Paddington doesn't get into too much trouble. Let's see what happens. So we got to the bit where he said, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the man is?" The scene hand went on working. "Man," he said. "What man?" "The man," Paddington said. "The nasty man." "Oh, you mean Cecily?" The scene hand pointed towards a long corridor. "He's in his dressing room. You'd better not go disturbing him, 'cause he's not in a very good mood." He looked up. "Hey!" he cried. "You're not supposed to be in here. Who let you in?" Paddington was too far away to answer, even if he'd heard. He was already halfway up the corridor, looking closely at all the doors. Eventually, he came to one with a large star on it. Oh, that must be where all the famous actors go, mustn't it? And it had the words Cecily Bloom in big gold letters. Paddington drew a deep breath and knocked loudly. There was no reply, so he knocked again. Cautiously, he opened the door with his paw. "Go away," said a booming voice. "I don't want to see anyone." Paddington peered around the door. Cecily Bloom was lying stretched on a long couch. He looked very tired and cross. He opened one eye and gazed at Paddington. "I'm not signing any autographs," he growled. "But I don't want your autograph," said Paddington, fixing him with one of his hard stares. "I wouldn't want your autograph even if I had my autograph book, and I haven't got my autograph book, so there." Cecily sat up. "You don't want my autograph," he said in a surprised voice, "but everyone wants my autograph." "Well, I don't," said Paddington. "I've come to tell you to take your daughter back." He gulped the last few words. The great man seemed to have grown twice in size as he had been on the stage, and he looked as if he was going to explode at any minute. Cecily clutched his forehead. "You want me to take my daughter back?" he said. "That's right," said Paddington firmly. "And if you don't, I expect you can come and stay with me and Mr. and Mrs. Brown." Cecily Bloom ran his hand distractedly through his hair and then pinched himself. "Mr. and Mrs. Brown?" he said. He looked wildly around the room and then dashed to the door. "Sarah!" he called in a loud voice. "Sarah, come in here at once." He backed round the room until he had placed the couch between himself and Paddington. "Keep away, bear," he said, and then peered at Paddington, for he was rather short-sighted. "You are a bear, aren't you?" "That's right," said Paddington, "from darkest Peru." Cecily looked at his woolen hat. "Well then," he said crossly, "you ought to know better than to wear a green hat in my dressing room. Don't you know that green is a very unlucky colour for the theatre? Take it off at once." "It's not my fault," said Paddington. "I wanted to wear my proper hat." He had just started to explain all about his hat when the door burst open and the lady called Sarah entered. Paddington immediately recognised her as Cecily's daughter from the play. "It's all right," said Paddington. "I've come to rescue you." "You've what?" The lady seemed most surprised. "Sarah!" Cecily Bloom came out from behind the couch. "Sarah, protect me from this mad bear." "I'm not mad," said Paddington indignantly. "Then kindly explain what are you doing in my dressing room?" boomed the great actor. Paddington sighed. Sometimes people were very slow to understand things. Patiently, he explained it all to them. When he had finished, the lady called Sarah threw her head back and laughed. "Oh, I'm glad you think it's funny," said Cecily. "But darling, don't you see," she said, "it's a great compliment. Paddington really believes that you were throwing me out into the world without a penny. It shows what a great actor you are, darling." Cecily thought for a moment. He said gruffly. "Quite an understandable mistake. He looks quite a remarkably intelligent bear to me." Paddington looked from one to the other. "Then you were only acting all the time?" he faltered. The lady bent down and took his paw. "Of course, darling. But it was very kind of you to come to my rescue, darling. I shall always remember it, darling." "Well, I would have rescued you if you'd wanted me to," said Paddington. Cecily coughed. "Are you interested in the theatre, bear?" he boomed. "Oh yes," said Paddington, "very much. Except I don't quite like having to pay for everything. I want to be an actor when I grow up." The lady called Sarah jumped up. "Why, silly darling," she said, looking at Paddington. "I've an idea," she whispered in Cecily's ear. And then Cecily looked at Paddington. It's a bit unusual," he thought, "but it's worth a try. Yes, it's certainly worth a try." In the theatre itself, the interval was almost at an end, and the Browns were getting very restless. "Oh dear," said Mrs. Brown, "I wonder where he's got to." "If he doesn't hurry up," said Mr. Brown, "he's going to miss the start of the second act." Just then there was a knock at the door, and an attendant handed him a note. "A young bear gentleman asked me to give you this, sir," he announced. "He said it was very urgent." Thank you," said Mr. Brown, taking the note and opening it. "Well, what does it say?" said Mrs. Brown. "Is he all right?" Mr. Brown handed her the note to read. "Your guess is as good as mine," he said. Mrs. Brown looked at it. It was hastily written in pencil, and it said, "I have been given a very important job. Paddington. P.S. I will tell you about it later." Oh, Paddington. What on earth is this really important job you've got? "Oh," said Mrs. Brown, "what on earth can it mean? Trust something unusual to happen to Paddington." "I don't know," said Mr. Brown, settling back into his chair. "But I'm not going to let it spoil my play." "Well, I hope the second half's better than the first," said Jonathan. "I thought the first half was rotten. That man kept on forgetting his lines." The second half was much better than the first. From the moment Cecily strode onto the stage, the theatre was electrified. A great change had come over him. He no longer fumbled over his lines, and the people who had coughed all through the first half now sat up in their seats and hung on to his every word. Oh, I wonder what's happened to change things. When the curtain finally came down at the end of the play, with Cecily's daughter returning to his arms, there was a great burst of applause. Hooray! The curtain rose again, and the whole company bowed to the audience. And then it rose while Cecily and Sarah bowed. But still the cheering went on. Hurrah! Hurrah! Bravo! Bravo! Finally, Cecily stepped forward and raised his hand for quiet. "Shh! Shh! Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "thank you for your most kind applause. We are indeed most grateful. But before you leave, I would like to introduce to you the youngest and most important member of our company, a young bear who came to our rescue." The rest of Cecily's speech was drowned in a buzz of excitement as he stepped forward to the very front of the stage, where a small screen hid a hole in the boards, which was really a prompt box in case anybody forgot their lines. He took hold of one of Paddington's paws and pulled. Paddington's head appeared through the hole, and in the other paw he was grasping a copy of the script. Oh, blimey. "Come along, Paddington," said Cecily. "Come and take your bow." "I can't," said Paddington. "I think I'm stuck." And stuck he was. It took several stagehands, the fireman, and a lot of butter to remove him after the audience had gone. But he was far enough out to twist round and raise his hat to the cheering crowd before the curtain came down for the last time. Hey, hooray! Several nights later, anyone going into Paddington's room would have found him sitting up in bed with his scrapbook, a pair of scissors and a pot of paste. He was busy pasting a picture of Cecily Bloom, which the great man had signed. "To Paddington, with grateful thanks." There was also a signed picture from the lady called Sarah, and one of his proudest possessions, a newspaper cutting about the play, headed, "Paddington saves the day." Mr. Gruber had told him that the photographs were probably worth a bit of money, but after much thought he had decided not to part with them. In any case, Cecily Bloom had given him his 20p back and a pair of opera glasses. Oh, Now, do you remember what I said about it being the last of our Paddington stories? Because I think it would be nice if we started a new story. And do you remember I said a day or two back that I was going to give you the chance to choose a serial story? Well, what I'd like you to do is to email to let the school know which story you would like, and then the school will let Val know which one you want to read. So Paddington and I are going to give you the choices for the story. So I'll take my glasses off. I'll bring the books close to the camera so that you can see them. Here we come. Right, so our first choice is, I don't know if you can, well, you can see that. It's Mr. Stink, and that's by David Walliams. So you could have that one. Our second choice, Captain Underpants and the Attack of the Talking Toilets. Oh, so if you enjoy that one, you vote for that. And then our last choice, which you might like, Roald Dahl, The Witches. Now, that one's got a few, not scary bits, but it's an interesting story. Let's just put it that way. So if you think you'd like that one, you could vote for that. And Val will read whichever story gets the most votes, and then you get to choose it then, don't you? Rather than Val just picking it. Okay? So, Captain Underpants, Mr. Stink, or The Witches. Until then, oh no, I'm going to keep my Paddington ears on. It's a goodbye from Frank, goodbye from Paddington, and a goodbye from Val. You take care now. Bye.